Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abadi, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. And tonight we have a special interview segment. My guest in just a moment will be Gary Denton. We'll be talking more about Gary's career. But right now, I want to thank the people that make this show possible. Motion Pro, tools, cables, and controls since 1984. Vinco, keep the ride going with over 1,000 products in their catalog. Preston Petty Products, the legend continues. Racer X, Northwest Mako CZ, Full Circle Racing, and the International Motocross Museum. Don't forget to keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. A little bit later on, we will have a random share giveaway winner, and they will get a sticker sheet just like this, compliments of Vinco. Now, as I mentioned, our guest tonight is Gary Denton. Gary started his career down in Southern California, in the hotbed of Southern California motocross in the early 70s. He rode for a great organization that we were all famous with as motocross guys, DG. He also had some sponsors from Suzuki, Yamaha, and he was also an 8-time quad national champion, which I'm really, really interested in talking about all those things. So why don't we bring Gary into the picture here. Gary Denton.
Vintage MX.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me tonight, Gary. Can you hear me okay? Is everything good in the audio end?
Yes, everything's great. I was watching your cool commercial.
Oh, okay. So if we're shooting a movie about the life of Gary Denton, and we're about to learn when he took his first ride on a motorcycle, what's that scene look like, Gary?
Well, I grew up in Chino, California, and it's farmlands and dairies, and we also had the prison. But my friends used to kid me. I had a neighbor friend, Daryl Van Westernen, and Daryl was a couple years older, and he had his parents bought him a brand new '69 Mini Trail 50.
Okay.
So I got to ride. I was probably like 10 years old, and I got to ride this Mini Trail 50, and we'd ride around the neighborhood on it. And from there, I begged my parents to buy me a motorcycle, and they were against it. And finally, they broke down and bought me a Taco mini bike for $10, and I rode the wheels off that thing. So I rode that thing so much the first day that I got sick. I couldn't even ride the second day. That's how much I love that mini bike. And from there, we just rode a lot. And shortly after that, we ended up going to Claude Osteen's Cycle Park. Chino's right next to Pomona, where Claude Osteen's, the famous Claude Osteen Cycle Park, was at. And that's where I learned how to ride.
And at that point, your parents were supportive of you riding the little bike, or how were you getting there? What were you doing?
Well, that's a great question. My dad, that didn't like motorcycles because he had a friend that got in a bad accident on a street bike, would take us over there and drop Daryl and I off, and he'd have his mini trail, and I'd have my Taco mini bike in the beginning, and he'd go, okay, how many hours? And we'd be there for, like 3-4 hours, and he'd give us $5 each, and we'd buy snacks at the snack bar, and we'd just ride the trails, and we'd have gas and a duffel bag. We didn't have much, and but it was great. And from there, I got a mini enduro 60. Rode that for a little while, but it kept breaking down. Back then, those things sucked a lot of dirt and probably had a hole in the air filter. But from there, they bought me a 72 125 MX Yamaha. And that was kind of Yamaha's first kind of race bikes. So I wore that thing out for quite a while.
Now, you said you grew up in Chino, which is, for people that aren't aware of it, it's between the county of Los Angeles and Riverside. There had to be a lot of other places to ride out there, too. What were some of the tracks that maybe you went to at that time?
Well, it was amazing. I mean, there was all kinds of race tracks, if that's what you're looking at. If you're looking at just practice areas, they were everywhere. I could ride from my house and go practice in fields. And then if you want to get a little bit, better, terrain, meaning hilly, we would drive, 15, 20 minutes, and we would be out in a sandy area. I learned how to ride sand really well. That's why I could ride Indian Dunes well, because I learned in the sand, quite a bit. Hardpack took me a while to pick that up, but a lot of just open territory. You could ride anywhere in Southern California, literally 10, 15 minutes, you were at a track. It was just incredible. And then there were racetracks on top of that, and there was probably, I don't even know, probably 10 or 15 different racetracks in the general vicinity of Southern California.
Did you have Saddleback, Indian Dunes, Carlsbad, Escape Country near there?
Yes, sir. You're naming them off. And then you had night tracks. So you had Orange County, you had Ascot, you had Irwindale. There was OCIR. I mean, the list just went forever. Lions Drag
Yeah.
Strip. Yeah, I can't even think of all the tracks, you know. So we were very spoiled in this area, and because of the weather, you could ride all year long. I mean, you know, you sure get a little
Mm.
bit of rain, a little bit of mud, but not much really when you look back on it.
So how long did the little Yamaha ride last before you either got a bigger bike, or maybe the question I should be asking you is when, or do you recall the first time you saw a scrambles race or a motocross race? What was your introduction to a competitive track?
You know, that's a great question. So that bike, I pretty much wore that bike out. I'd crash on it. I broke the peg off at one time up on the hills because Cloudsteins was really hard packed. I mean, there were rocks and blue groove and, you know, DG type dirt. So,
Hmm.
but that bike, you know, I rode it probably for about a year or so, and there was AME was having a race at Cloudsteins. I begged my dad to let me race, and he did. So he let me race. And you would laugh because here I had all I would do was I'd go out on the motocross track. I rode it some, but I liked riding just open terrain. But the thing I liked doing at the track itself was doing starts. All the guys would line up. There'd be 5 to 10 of us, and we'd line up and we'd drag to the first turn, and then come back and do it again. So you know, for a portion of my riding sessions when I'd go there would be drag racing. So I learned how to
Uh-huh.
start really well. So when the race came, Amy put the race on. They had 3 motos. I whole shotted all the motos, and I won my first 100 beginner race. It was pretty amazing, actually. I don't know
You
how, but I did.
Well, you were known as a whole shot artist as your career went on, and I guess you didn't realize all that practice was really going to pay off someday. Now,
No, you really
uh,
don't. And so what's really odd is I won the race, and so my parents weren't sure about letting me race. They didn't really want me to race. I had to beg and cry and plead, and then we had to go get the trophy. So the only way to get the trophy is go to the next event. So we ended up going to the next event. Here's a track we didn't mention: Rawhide Cycle Park. So
okay.
the event was at Rawhide, which is out in Elsinore, and somewhere now, and I don't even really know where it's at. But we went out there, and it was a really cool track. You'd go through streams, and you went up and down these big hills, and it was just cool. And I went and got my trophy, and I think I got second or third there or something. And well, I just kept racing. You know that
So
I just loved it.
you didn't get a trophy till the next week. Is that how they got you to go to the next race, or is that
Yeah.
just the budget? The budget was low, and that's the way they did it.
Well, it's the way they did it. And so they kind of, I think they probably put the carrot in front of you. So to go get the trophy, we had to go to the track. And since we're going to
Right.
the track, we might as well race, right? So yeah, it was really cool.
So you turned pro at 16, if my research is correct. So for how many years did you race these other races? I mean, like when you were 14, 15, is that how many years that went on?
Yeah, you got a pretty good addition there. So I started just like November the 5th of 72. How do I remember? I don't
Okay.
know. So that's when I started. And shortly after that, I was 14. And in a year and a half, I turned pro. So I had fastest lap times when I was 125 intermediate, like day tracks or night tracks. And night tracks were really prevalent back then. So we raced Irwindale a lot, Ascot, not too much Orange County, but Irwindale was pretty much the premier night track. And so I raced there like every Friday, and then I'd race Saturday or Sunday somewhere. It'd be Saddleback, Carlsbad, Indian Dunes, wherever. And so, and as you know, the hotbed of Southern California was where the guys were at that time, and they were putting out a ton of national champions. I mean, it goes from, I don't even know, Marty Smith, Barack Glover, Bob Hanna. The list just goes forever. And so every time you lined up on the line with these guys, they were just blazing fast. But prior to me getting there, I had turned pro. So my first pro race was a year and a half into it, and people were telling me you got the fastest lap times, you're faster than the pros, day races, night races, whatever. But you know, I was just a young kid, I didn't know. And so we went to Irwindale and raced my first pro race, and I won the first moto. I think I got third. The second moto I won, and the third moto I crashed over the big jump. They had a huge jump that they'd take you over the start. They ended up changing after that. Stu Peters did it with CMC, but it wasn't something that he meant to do. It's just something that happened. But there was a rut atop the jump, and it was really high speed. And I crashed, and I think Mike Bell crashed, and Cliff Lett, and a bunch of top guys. And I woke up in the ambulance. I had a bruised spleen, and I had a broken pelvis, and I was knocked silly.
At 16. I lost the audio, Jordan, and he doesn't know it. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to try and give Gary a call or send him a text and let him know that we don't have audio. I'm not really. Hey, Gary, can you hear me now? No, he can't. Well, we have a little bit of a technical problem. Please stand by while I try and figure out what's going on with Gary Denton.
Hello?
Gary, we lost your audio.
Hold on. Yes.
I can hear you through my phone, but I can't hear you through the program at this point. Did you maybe mute your phone or something?
I didn't touch it. Oh, I see it's muted. I didn't touch it, though. I'll undo it right now.
Okay. I'm going to hang up the phone. Let's see if we can get you back
Okay.
through the show. Okay?
Okay.
How about now? Can you hear me now? No, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Yeah, now I can. Now I can.
Okay.
Okay, so you got a broken pelvis and a ruptured spleen. You're in an ambulance. You're 16 years old. Mom and dad are thinking, what at this point? Gary's days as a racer are over?
I probably, but you know me, the first thing I asked was, how's the bike?
Hey, what bike? You know what? I don't want to take your injury. I'm not taking it. I don't mean to make light of it.
No,
but at that point, what bike are you riding?
125 Elsinore. There was no other bike. I had a YZ 125. I had Yamahas, you know,
Right.
through the junior ranks, and then when I got to 125, we needed a YZ 125, and that thing was like riding on rocks. And
Sure.
got that CR 125, smoked all the intermediates on its box stock. And I'm not saying
Okay.
that was the guy or nothing. I'm just telling you the difference. It was crazy, you know, and. Yeah, no, CR 125s were the bikes. I mean, you know, there was all the guys, Brock Glover, Mike Bell, we all rode
Yeah.
CR 125s.
Yeah. And so I guess this is the summer of 74?
Yeah.
Probably?
Yeah,
Okay.
probably right in there. And it took me about 3 or 4 months to come back and win a pro race, but I wasn't the same. That was at a night race. I wasn't the same at the day races. I just flat couldn't hang on to the bike. I mean, that anemia, you know, so that I had to train after that. And so that's all I did. So a couple years later, I was able to, you know, they had things at Irwindale that were called the Night Nationals that were really a premium event.
Yes.
And I really pushed hard. David Taylor won it in 75, and they were getting like 3,000 spectators at these events, Stu Peters told me. And so in 76, I won, and I won by probably a quarter lap or more. I tried all year for that. That was my goal of my lifetime, you know. And so being a CMC pro night national champion, 125 champion was like the coolest thing ever for me at that point in my career.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. You're 16 years old. You're doing all this racing. Are you still in school? Are you working? What else is happening in your life other than racing bikes?
No, I'm going to school, and that's it. I mean, you know, I went to Chino High, and yeah, just normal kid stuff, you know. And back then,
and the money. I'm sorry. The money you're making from racing is kind of supporting your racing too.
Yeah, I mean, mom and dad pretty much paid for everything. They were glass workers, and my dad just loved it. My dad lived about 5 years before he had a heart attack, and he passed. But he thought racing was the best, you know. I mean, even though he was against it in the beginning, it was really his passion later. And so God bless and love him. My dad, mom and dad both, they would work long shift hours to pay for those dirt bikes. And, you know, you got to have support like that. It's not easy.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
I was very fortunate.
Okay, so you're 16 now. You got a pro license. You're mopping up at Irwindale at night. You're making a couple of bucks here and there. The initials DG, they have been etched in the minds of teenagers since 1975. And I often associated you, of course, with the DG team. I've got I don't know if I have a lot of questions, but let's ask the first one. How were you found by DG? Where did they see you? How did they pull you into the fold?
Gary Harlow was at the races and said, hey, you know, we could probably help you out. Why don't you come by? And we did, and, you know, went there, and they gave me jerseys and heads and cylinders and pipes, and Some of the stuff we had to buy naturally, like we did motors or something. But yeah, they just took care of me. I mean, the bikes were cool. And Harry Klim was a genius. I mean, motor builder. So later I learned how to tune, wrench and tune on bikes. And, you had to because you're racing against just incredible amount of talent in Southern California.
That bike that we were just looking at here in the slide, were you able to see that?
That's beautiful. Yes.
Was that a bike they put together for you, or was that like a team bike that all of you guys rode?
Well, I'm looking at, bring that. Is that got cantilever shocks? I can't see, or is it?
I think there's a complete shot of the side if Jordan could bring it up, and we'll. Hang on, Gary.
Yeah, no problem.
No, they got forward mounted, but they're not cantilevered.
Yeah. So my bike looks something like that. It was a little bit different color of yellow, but as I recall. But I had a full DG racer, Joe, and actually a guy just called me, and there were only a few frame bikes. That's why I asked about the rear shocks, and the frame bikes were cantilever shock. And so I had a number 9 bike that was a full DG. I think it had Sirianni forks. It's a frame bike. And an old neighbor just called me, and I secured that bike, the remnants of it. So I'm going to rebuild that bike. But I could tell you a funny story about the cantilever shocks. I was on the line in 1975, 76-ish, maybe 6. And Marty Smith was lined up next to me at Carlsbad. And Marty asked me, he said, hey, how do those work, those shocks? Because his were forward mounted like that bike. And I said, Marty, you go through the whoops before the ledge when you drop off there, and the whoops were, horrendously big. And I said, you can just go right through them. He goes, man, I want to try those. And if you remember later, Honda had cantilever shocks. So, pretty cool. Marty was a great guy, by the way. God bless him.
Absolutely, and sorely missed. So Marty's on an RC 125, and he's asking you about what DG had on your bike. Gary, I guess he can't hear me again. Jordan, can you wave your magic wand, or what are we doing? I guess I'm calling him back. Hey, Gary, I don't know what happened. We kind of lost audio again.
I watched it, and my mic wasn't on. I didn't see anything weird. But all I can do is maybe try to turn the mic back off. Mic clicked off right now, so it's like off.
Okay.
But you want me to see if I can click it back on?
Why don't we try that one more time? And if it doesn't work, we'll stick to the phone and continue on doing it like this.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to hang up the phone. Let's see if we can hear you, okay?
All right, buddy.
All right, what do we got? Can you hear me, Gary? What about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So what I was saying was you're on the line with Marty Smith. He's on an RC 125. You're on this DG bike, and he's asking you about the setup?
Yeah. And if you remember Marty, I mean, what a stud. I mean, this guy looked like a, right out of Surfer Magazine and Conan the Barbarian mixed, and a nice guy, just incredible person. And, he's a superstar. I mean, unbelievable.
Let's, I want to talk about Harry Klim because he's always an interesting topic and a great guy. I like Harry very much. But I want to know who are some other guys that we might recognize that were in that DG group between 74 and 78? Was that the Brock Glover time? Was Davey Taylor there? Who was there?
Yeah, they all were. You had Davey Williams, David Taylor, Brock Glover. You had Bob Hanna. You had David Ropkin. I mean, we had a crazy powerhouse team.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the DG guys and there was the FMF guys. So it was cool.
Yeah.
In those days, DG was like blazing a new trail. So was FMF, but I think DG stepped it up a little bit, and then FMF stepped it up a little bit, and they were both going at it, trying to create the cooler stuff. And I mean, with all that cool stuff, you would go line up on the line at like Irwindale Raceway at a nighttime, and not all the bikes, like the 100 juniors, 125 juniors, they're all, I shouldn't say all, but the majority of them were jetted so bad, and you would get
Right.
there 3 events before, and they'd run so rich, and you're waiting to get on the line, and we all had crisp bikes naturally. It's funny. Before I came on the show, that popped into my head vividly. It's the things you would do. At Irwindale, David Taylor and I'd get there at 12 o'clock on a Friday because it went by how you signed up. Was how you got this pick on the gate for the first moto. How crazy is that?
It is crazy. Hey, Gary.
Yeah.
What I have to do is I have to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about the DG team and what that pit was like when you guys were all at a national and what that was like. We'll be right back with Gary Denton.
Vinco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vinco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vinco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vinco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vinco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
Okay, we're back with Gary Denton, and we were talking about his years with DG. Gary, when you were there, I think you guys first got started using Hondas, and eventually you went to Yamahas. Let's just stay where we were there with what it was like. In other words, if it's you, Glover, and a bunch of other really fast guys, and you guys hit a national on the 125s, what is that DG pit like at that time? Who's the mechanic? Who's running things? Is it like herding cats? What's going on?
Well, see, that for me, I never went on the nationals with those guys. So
okay,
crazy. I was kind of a squid back then. Remember, I got hurt in 74. So those guys went on the nationals like 75, 76, and I got really fast in 76. It took me that long to get back at it. So 74, 75 were kind of body repairing years. I won races, sure, and I was okay fast, but not like those guys. So Davey Williams, David Taylor, Tessitore, John Tessitore, Brock Glover, Hannah, they all went on the nationals. So I wasn't there with those guys, but I can tell you it was Harry Clem was the master. He was running the pit, and they had what was those called? Mark Charles stands, right? Remember those stands
Yes.
they rolled the bikes up on? So they all had those. I remember the photos, and I'd see all that stuff. And Brock and I are real buddies, so we were still buddies to this day, I should say, and I think a lot of Brock. And so Brock, Brock would always, Joel Jameson was a photographer. Brock would be out trying to do cross-ups. He just showed the DG book of tricks, and I was on there 2 years in a row, so Brock was always trying to get the cooler shot. But he was off winning titles. I was just a squid getting lucky enough to get on the cover. Isn't that funny?
Well, yeah, but you still had quite a career, and we're going to be talking more about that right now. I do want to talk about Harry Clem, and was he your tuner? I mean, he obviously, I know he did everybody's bike on the whole team, but what do you recall about Harry in the DG days? And were you able to give him feedback on what you wanted from the bike, or did he give you a bike and say, this is it, try it? Tell me about the relationship with Harry during those days and the heavy modifications he made to those bikes.
Well, Harry was there was all kinds of crazy stuff porting wise. I mean, there were warm ports and, I don't even know what they called some of the ports, tunnel ports. They made all kinds of weird stuff on these bikes because they were non-reed block motor. But I can tell you that Harry would give me, at one point I got pretty good at testing so I could take stuff apart. The bikes were fairly simple to work on. So he gave me 2 different port jobs, type cylinder. He gave me 3 different heads. We're talking different CC domes, maybe circumference on the dome. And I would go out and then 2 different pipes and a couple carburetors, maybe 3 pipes because they built their own pipes. And I would take that stuff out and test. and I would just take parts and move it around and keep trying and pulling off head gaskets and trying different heads and different things and different thicknesses and it really made a difference in how the bike performed. So Harry was a master, but I became a pretty good, decent test guy, meaning I had a good feel for the bike. So that had
Okay.
helped advance my starting position because you're riding against Glover, Hanna, Smith. I mean, it just went on and on and on. It was like a national every Sunday. So if I could get out front, I may not beat the guys, but I'd be able to get top three, or maybe I would win.
Sure.
Sometimes I would win some of those races. It just depended. Later in years, I won a lot more local races, and I got to where I could beat people. But that's when my health got a little better. But it was amazing to ride in those times when I look back on it. We had so many great tracks. Saddleback and Carlsbad and Indian Dunes were just phenomenal tracks to race on, and to be a part of it and get to do it was just incredible. I mean, it was just you could race in California, Joe.
Yeah.
Literally, we were talking about. I'm trying to remember. So like Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, like six nights or days a week. How crazy is that?
It is.
Yeah.
And, I was speaking to Ron Turner when we were down at Langston's last year, and I asked him. It was off the mic, just the two of us on the side. I said, "Is it true that you have raced over 950 main events?"
Yeah.
And it is true. Over 950. I mean, think about just racing a motocross race 2 times a day, and you say, "Well, I raced 950 times." This guy,
Ronnie was
Turner, saying he raced 950 mains.
Yeah, no, he did. Ron would race 3 classes. I mean,
Yeah.
I had one time I had a chance to win 3 classes at OCR. Won the 125, won the 250. Was going to win the 500. Just borrowed the 500, and then never tried it. I was going to do it, and some guy just took me out on purpose because he didn't want me to win 3 classes. But Ron won a lot of 3 classes events. I mean, I won 2 classes quite a few times, but Ronnie was a master. He was amazing. Just a great rider.
Were you at DG when they switched to team bikes over to Yamaha?
No, I went on to Suzuki's at that point.
Okay.
So I want to say Davey Williams was there, John Tessitore, Taylor might have rode some Yamahas for them. I can't recall. Yeah, David did. So David rode the white bike. He did. I went on and I rode for Suzuki of Pomona. So one where I had the stars on the jersey. And that really kind of turned my career around because those things they handled so well, those bikes. So that had to be like 77. Heck, I raced my brother's 125 stock bike. Mark Lowens protested me, but there were heat races at a $300 purse race at Indian Dunes. And that bike was so fast. I literally didn't add a stock motor, but I changed the carburetor, took the head gasket out, dropped it down, cut a 1/2 inch out of the pipe, re-geared it, put some good shocks on it, and went and raced it, and it was just blazing fast.
And whose bike was that, Gary? Whose bike was that? Your brother's?
That was my brother's 125.
I didn't even know you had a brother that raced.
Yeah, my brother Guy Denton. Yes, he raced 125 Intermediate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, really cool. And so he said, "Yeah, just take the bike. I'm not riding." So I took it and did all this stuff to it, and then it was so gnarly. I think I put like a 32 millimeter carburetor on it, Joe. It was fast. I mean, and Lawrence thought I had to be cheating, so he protested. I said, "Take the cylinder out." They go, "No, we just want to check the board and stock." I go, "Take it off. I want to show up it's stock." That's funny. Back in the day, right?
Yeah. Hey, how did the Suzuki of Pomona ride come about? I mean, did they offer you?
Well, I lived in Chino, and
Right.
I'd go there to get parts because it was right up the road. And Mike that owned it, I keep forgetting Mike's last name. Apologize, Mike, but he was a great guy, and he gave me bikes and parts, and I put him on the map, and with the bike and stuff and the races, and likewise he helped me. So it was really good, great relationship. He gave me here's a cool one. He gave me a bike. I go, "I want to get a 250," and he goes, "All right." So he gave me a 125 frame. And
Oh, not again. I don't think he knows that we have lost audio once again with Gary Denton. I think I'm going to get him on the phone and keep him on the phone at this point. I want to thank everybody for being patient with me, trying to do the best I can.
Okay, buddy.
All right, Gary.
When you called in.
Yeah, I think we're going to just stay on the phone, Gary, and we'll just keep going this way. This way we know we're not going to lose audio again. So let's back up a little bit. You go down to the Suzuki guy. You got your buddy Mike, and he says, we're going to help you out with a bike.
Yeah.
So what happens from there?
Well, he gives me a bike. He gives me parts, and I put the jersey on, and that bike was so good. I just started winning races right away.
Okay.
And those Suzukis changed my racing career for a big part of it.
How long were you with them before there was a change? And this has got to be right before the quad situation, isn't it? Or was there?
This is 77, so it's quite a ways before.
Oh, okay.
I worked for them for a while, and I think he might have sold the business, and I got hooked up with. In 78, I hooked up with Suzuki West, another great guy. And that guy had Suzuki West. I forget his name. I apologize. But the guy was a great sponsor. I went on the national. I almost won a national on those Suzukis. I had one won by about 30-some seconds in the motor blew up. And actually, I was so tired, Joe, I didn't even race the second moto because the bike broke as far away as you can get. We're racing 45-minute motos with about 5 minutes left. I was smoked.
Wow.
And in that humidity there, I had to walk all the way back. I was just mentally defeated. I was mentally bankrupt. I was weak. If I raced the second moto, if we had a motor, I probably could have won the second moto, but I should have. But sometimes you get defeated in your own mind. You get your own way.
Yeah, and where was that race? Where was that race, Gary?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
Oh.
1978. I had them waxed by a long ways.
Right. Well, and that's in 78?
Yeah, 1978.
So now you finished 10th in 81 and 7th in 82. And it's really, really impressive. I mean, when you finished 7th in 1982, I want to mention the 6 guys that were ahead of you. Hannah, Holland, Ward, Gibson, O'Mara, and Barnett. Doesn't get much faster than that.
The guys were incredible, too. I remember that year. Here's a funny story for the folks.
Sure.
So we're at Binghamton, New York, and Hannah hates that 125 Yamaha, and he's quite a bit faster. But Bob, I mean, he's a stud, right? But he hates that Yamaha, just where he jumped on the Hondas. And there was a cool, really trick off-camera section in the back, and I come in, and Bob went in, and with the normal firm line, I went out early and then cut back underneath and passed him and waved to him as I was coming off the corner. Bob was so pissed. A couple corners later, they had this gnarly, rocky, big, rutted downhill. Everybody knows it at Binghamton, New York. And Bob just went right through the ruts. I was on the outside, and he comes down there. He didn't even make the turn. He was so pissed at me. He went off into the, he went off into by the fence, like another 30 foot off the corner. So I hauled ass, and he got a few laps later, he got around me. But that's a good Hannah story. I know Bob pretty well, actually. Yeah,
well, obviously, I mean, you guys went back to the DG years in the 70s, and here it is. Yeah. What that would have been 19. What year? He was still on Yamaha. So
yeah, so you're talking probably about 75, 70, 76, somewhere in there.
Oh,
I can
okay.
tell you something about Bob. Bob came when he first arrived on the scene. Rocket Rex had all his trick stuff, and there's no discrediting Rocket Man.
Right.
But when we were at Saddleback, Bob showed up on a Husky. And it would look like it was stock. And I think he had a full-face helmet on. And his name was Robert Hanna 6H. And he got off in third, worked his way up, got right all over the Rocket Man, all over the Husky, right into the back of the bike, riding the wheels off, and passed Rocket and won. We go, who the hell is this guy?
On a Husky.
That was the guy that was going to be the Hurricane. That's who that was.
Well, how long did you go on then with the... Was there another manufacturer or sponsor you had between Suzuki and the jump to quads?
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of the scenario. So I had Honda, American Honda sponsored me and gave me bikes and parts in 1980. So they gave me the bikes and parts, and I had Mike Chavez. He went on to later work for Yamaha, a real famous mechanic. And so the guy called him the Swap. So Chavez and I were doing the bikes and getting ready for the nationals, and I broke my wrist, my navicular, and I was winning saddleback local races, geared up, and I was a couple weeks before the nationals in 1980, and they said, "Look, it's going to take you about 6 months, whether we operate or it heals on its own, 5-6 months." And I said, "I heal fast," and every month I'd go in there and they'd X-ray me at the doctor's office. And the moral of the story is I didn't race for 6 months.
Oh.
Missed the nationals, and 2 months, I got to ride for about 2 months, and then I broke my shoulder, had to have it operated on. I was racing a Grand Prix and broke my shoulder. I was trying to get around Willie Simons at the Indian Dunes Grand Prix. And it's the first lap, and there's this huge rut, and I hit it. Anyway, it imploded my shoulder. So I was out literally pretty much a year, Joe. So when I came back and raced in 81, I rode Suzuki's again. Suzuki West sponsored me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really slow. But there was 12 works riders, and I ended up getting 10th. Magoo got 9th that year. Kind of to give you guys the folks an idea how fast these freaking riders were. Nobody could dispute that Magoo was the fastest.
Right.
Magoo got 9th that year. He was best he was doing as a 5th or 6th. He was really about a 7th or 8th place rider if you look at the finishes. And I was probably a 10th or 12th place rider, and it equated to 10th overall. And I beat a couple works riders. There were 12 works bikes that year. And Magoo went on the next year and won everything. I think he won the destinations, right? So that would have been 82, right?
Yes.
So think about that. That's the guys you had to ride against. And so I was slow that year. I'm not taking anything away from any of the riders. I just was, because I was in repair mode from being off for a whole year. That really affected me. And I was a little older, too. I was probably 23 then. And the next year, and when I got 7th, I was 24. And I got top privateer. And after that, I talked to Toshi Suzuki, and he said, "We have no budget." The reality is they hired Ricky Ryan, a kid that I beat pretty much all year long.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted that youth. They were planning on the youth, but that's just the way it is sometimes.
Sure. So let's talk about, as you said, you had that gap, you had the injury, and then there's 1984. Did you take a little bit of time off between the motorcycles and the quad career?
Well, I was racing dirt bikes, but I was racing like night races. I went to Canada. We raced the first arena crosses with CMC.
Okay.
We raced races up there. I almost won a 4-race series. My buddy Jimmy Hawley took me out pretty good. I'm going to do a post in that Facebook. You get to see it coming up. I talked to Jimmy about it. Nothing bad. We're friends today, but yeah, I won one of those races, got a third in another one. Would have won a second night, and I got taken out. And that cost me, that was like, I think, $20,000 to win those first 4 events to be the title holder. Cantalupe ended up winning it. But I was doing that kind of stuff in 84, 85, and I worked for my good friend Paul Thied that owns Racetech. So Thied gave me a job taking shocks apart, putting them back together, just symbol to symbol. And I did that in the shop, and I'd race local events, and I lived with my mom, and I basically was broke until ATVs came along. I was a poor white boy living with my mom.
Well, let's talk about that. And I think Harry Clem does come into the picture again during this. So you've gone through some injuries. You've kind of peaked out with the motocross thing, and you've gone through a couple of teams. You're 27 years old, and now you're going to race quads. How does that all come about?
Well, this is kind of crazy. So I get a call from Harry, and he goes, "Hey, he goes, how you doing?" I said, "I'm good." He goes, "Hey, do you have David Taylor's phone number?" And I go, "Yeah, I got it." And I go, "Well, what's up?" He goes, "I need somebody that can hole shot. I got these 4-wheel ATVs and the Suzuki have, and we're going to go race them, and I need somebody to start." He goes, "Well, wait a minute. You can start. You're the hole shot king." He goes, "Wait, I didn't think about that." He goes, "Would you like to race them?" And I said, "Sure, I'd give it a try. I'm not doing anything." And so he goes, "Well, why don't you come out riding later?" I think it was the next day. So like it was a Wednesday. So go meet me out at the sand pit, which we all rode there. And I told you I rode the sand. So I go out there and meet with another ATV guy, and Jim Putman. And Putman's trying to show me how to ride it like a 3-wheeler because he doesn't really know how to ride the 4-wheeler. So I just rode like that.
Oh, don't tell me I lost him on the phone now, too. Gary, can you still hear me? Gary, I can't hear you from the phone anymore, so I don't know if he can hear me over the mic. He's talking up a blue streak over there, so he probably doesn't even realize that I can't hear him. Jordan, what can we do to can we cut to a commercial, Jordan, and try and find out what's going on? Can we cut to a commercial, Jordan? All right, Gary, you back with me?
Yes.
Oh, let's do this. We're gonna take a commercial break, and we're gonna hear from Vinco or Motion Pro. I can hear you again clearly over the microphone. We'll be back in just a minute, and we'll pick up where you and Harry Clem have that conversation about getting good starts on a quad. We'll be right back, Gary. Stay with me.
Okay.
Okay, we're back with Gary Denton. We were talking about how his career began, well, for the second time, as he reinvented himself with quads. And Harry Clem was involved in that, and I want to know more about that. So can you continue on with that, Gary?
Yeah, sure. So Harry called me up. Did we get through the part where he called me, or do you want me to go back through that?
Yeah, let's talk about let's talk about it right from when he gave you the call.
Yeah, no problem. So I picked the phone up, and it's Harry Clem, and I'm working at Race Tech, and he says, "Hey, I'm looking for David Taylor's phone number." He goes, "Do you have it?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "What's up?" And he goes, "Well, I've got these 4-wheel ATVs," and he goes, "I need somebody that can start really good." He goes, "Well, wait a minute, you can start good." And this is how the conversation went. So I goes, "What? Would you be interested in racing them?" I said, "Sure, I'm not doing much." And so I had no idea. So we show up at Corona Raceway. That's a track we didn't mention, and and I'm telling you, there was like 500-600 three-wheelers there on a Thursday night. Not a Friday night, not a Saturday night, a Thursday night. It was amazing. And there were spectators everywhere. It was a whole nother racing world that I didn't know anything about. So we went there and we raced and I won. And then we raced again and I won, and maybe a couple other times. And Harry went out and approached Suzuki on putting me on the nationals and stuff, and they just didn't have a budget for it. So by luck, and here's something that happened when I was there. Jimmy White, which is in your picture right there, number 31.
Yeah.
And I'm right behind him on the quad. That was when they were trying to figure out what was faster, 3-wheelers or 4-wheelers, and we had a shootout. And I ended up beating Jimmy quite handily. Of course, 4-wheelers are quite a bit more capable of getting around the track at a higher speed. But anyway, so Jimmy White's there. He's got all the Kawasaki garb, man, all tricked like a factory full, like dirt bike guy, but he's a 3-wheeler guy, and he's making like $200,000 a year. Now I'm broke. I'm living at my mom's house. I work for Paul at Race Tech, and the most money I ever had in my account after getting top private two was $7,000. And here's a guy making $200,000. I go, wow, I can do that. Whether I could or not, I was telling myself I could. Anyway, the moral of the story was Terry Varner shows up at Race Tech after Harry Clem couldn't get any help from Suzuki, and in that mix of it, Varner had just gotten a settlement of money, and he goes, "Man, I'll buy you a couple of quads." So he bought me a practice bike, a race bike, and we went out and started racing and started winning everything. We won Mickey Thompson events, Friday night events, we run Speedway events, we won all these crazy different types of events that Suzuki was sponsoring, and I was making great money.
Do I have it right where I think you were racing trikes, quads, and trucks in a Mickey Thompson Ultracross series?
Yeah. So you're right. So Mickey Thompson event was crazy. In the beginning, they were trying to race 4-wheelers against 3-wheelers, and the guys were getting hurt, That was before they knew who was faster, really, because right in the beginning. And, Mickey Thompson events were cool because you had just huge stadiums, and Mickey and Trudy Thompson had a great series. I have jumped out of the LA Coliseum, the Peristyle. Here's something for you. Probably maybe the only one or one of the few. I'm probably the only one. I've jumped out of there on a motorcycle. I've jumped out of there on a four-wheel ATV. And I've jumped out of there on a Grand National sport truck. It was scary as hell, by the way. So I got to race stadium trucks for a short period of time. Race with Ricky Johnson and Jimmy Johnson and Walker Evans and all the studs. I mean, it was amazing. But when you jump out of that peristyle, and all you can see is the hood, and you're looking at the top bleachers, and you can't see where you're going to land. You don't know if there's another truck, or you don't know if there's people, or the flagger's going to flag you and say, stop, which they don't generally. You're just jumping blind. It's scary, like really scary.
Now, you mentioned Terry Varner. I know he was doing some work for you on your engines, but you were also involved with another very colorful character from LOP, Lorenz Offner.
Oh yeah, motorcycle days. Yes, yeah, Lorenz. What a nut. What a lunatic, that guy. Great guy, but just a nut. Yeah. Lorenz was a character, man. He got Doug Democus one night to drink flaming shots, and Doug didn't know that you blow it out. And we were in a bar after the races, and Doug got his face on fire. It was ugly. The bar kind of cleared out after that. Lorenz was always pulling tricks, on people. But yeah, Lorenz tells me and Richie Kuhn one time he signed us up to race Yamahas, and you're talking 1979. So there was a point in there where I rode Yamahas, Joe. I forgot. So
okay.
Go back to motorcycles, 1979. Richie Kuhn and I get a ride with Lorenz, and we're going to race Yamahas. And I didn't like the bikes that much, but whatever. That was just one of those years. Even though I did get fourth at St. Pete at the end of the series, which was I think my best finish ever in national. But we're driving along. We hardly know Lorenz. He goes, "This car will burn the tires at 60 miles an hour." And we go, "No way." And he goes, "Yeah, no." And it was a Mustang. Lorenz is going along. He throws the thing in reverse, and of course it's burning the tires at 60 miles an hour. That was our introduction to Lorenz Offner, and he was sponsoring us. Yeah, he did a lot of good for the industry. He was the first satellite team, as I believe, to be out there. That was there was an actual guy that didn't have a performance shop, was just helping people.
When did the AMA decide that they were going to make quads an AMA national thing, and they were going to start putting on races the same way they do motocross? And was that before you got into quads or right when that happened?
They had a thing called the AATVA, and then later it was called the AMA ATV National. So there was a switch in there somewhere, but it pretty much was the same. The three-wheelers were phased out and the four-wheelers came into play, and they took over, pretty much. And at that point in time, when I started racing those things in 85, 86, I mean, Suzuki had, they had advertisements in motocross action, all the, dirt bike, of course, all the four-wheeler ATV, magazines, but they had advertisements everywhere on TV. I mean, here's what happened. I never made any money. I got into four-wheeling, and every dream I had was there, meaning I got to make money, have a great living, buy a house, win titles, be on TV, be in all the magazines, and be the national champion. It was just amazing. It was like a dream come true, because I didn't get that in motorcycles. Like I say, if you didn't get on, I never said that in this interview, but if you didn't get on a works bike in like the late 80s, early 70s, or late 70s, you probably could do it. Because I almost won a national. But early 80s, those works bikes were probably 7-8 seconds a lap faster than a production bike.
Yeah. Yeah, and the guys had that backing too from the factory and getting whatever they needed to go even faster. But there was no way a guy on, which is I guess why the production rule came in 1985, which was great for leveling the field, but I don't know, it took that whole mystique away from motocross that we sort of grew up with. But
well, I never knew how fast the bike. I knew they were gnarly because I would beat a lot of the works riders when they rode production-based bikes at Saddleback and Carlsbad. But then 2-3 weeks later, they would wax me. I wouldn't even see them. And Ron Turner told me, I don't know, we were talking a few years ago, he would ride Bailey's or he would ride Johnson's bikes, get them set up for them before they would use them. And he was a test rider for Honda at the time, and he said they're 8 seconds immediately. You just get on them over a production bike. Because he rode those tracks. He rode Saddleback, he rode Carlsbad, doing testing all the time, and he said immediately 8 seconds. So we were up against that, and there was just even though I had really good production bikes, my good friend Paul Feed at Race Tech did all the cool work to them. and did the suspension and the power, there was always so much you could do with a production-based bike.
Sure. Now, you mentioned that the money you made with quads certainly had surpassed the money that you were making racing motocross.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was good. I mean, here's the difference. I had $7,000 in the bank at the end of getting top privateer in 1982, and my first full factory ride in 1987, I made $100,000.
wow.
So
Now,
there's a big switch there. You know what I mean? I mean, I had enough money. I had to go buy a house, So, and what it
yeah,
also helped me to do is learn how to negotiate. So I had like 30, 40 sponsors, so it was a big deal. And I had so many cool people that helped me, like Wayne Henson clutch components, baskets.
sure.
Wayne's a really good friend of mine. And we just talked the other day for an hour. And he helped me so much, in my racing endeavors, because the factories are only there at 87. And then CPA came along, consumer CSP, I can't think of it, Consumer Safety Product Commission came along and said, okay, you guys can't build four-wheel ATVs anymore and race them. So they made the factories disband that. So I was ready to sign a multiple-year contract after making $100,000, winning my first title, and go make $300,000 a year, which would have been a lot in 1988,
Sure.
and have a multiple-year contract, and that didn't happen. So it's okay. That's the way life is, I had great years. I still made a lot of money, even without the factory, because the sponsorships really came in and helped me. But it also taught me how to negotiate my contracts. You learn by trial and error, right?
Yeah. Now, according to my math, it says here you won 8 national championships on a quad.
Yeah. That's another crazy thing. I mean, you got to have really good backing. You got to have ability. You got to have luck, and you got to have the man above.
Oh,
Without
absolutely.
that, you can't win 8 titles. There's just no way in a row.
And we're going to talk about that, because your first year on a quad was 86 or 87.
Well, I raced it 85.
Right.
About halfway through that year, or 3/4 of the way, 85, and then raced as a privateer 86. Suzuki helped me, 86. I think I won 3 nationals that year, but we broke, and I didn't have a great program. And then the works program came in 87. Suzuki signed me, and then I won my first title in 87. I won my last title in 94, but they were all in a row.
That was my question. When it said 8 AMA national championships on the quad, I'm saying this guy went 8 years in a row, or did he miss a year, come back, or what happened? That was the part of the equation that I really couldn't figure out, and you've answered that for me. So it was 8 in a row.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think in a lot of ways it was great and it was fun and all that, but toward the end of it, the same people that rooted for you, you could just see in their eyes, they really weren't rooting for you so much. I don't think it's good, healthy for any sport, as much as I like winning the titles. You know what I mean?
Right.
But what's even crazier is there were 6 other racers that I had to beat during that era. 6 other four-wheel guys that became champions after I did. Now
Wow.
think about that. And a lot of them were there 3, 4, 5 years. That's how competitive that class was. So, yeah, I raced against some really tough hombres.
So let me ask you this. The Hugh Downs, Barbara Walters expose on the dangers of quads. Did that really hurt the industry, or what was the outcome there? Because
No, it was bullshit. She got on 60 Minutes and goes, "Don't ride ATVs, you'll kill yourself." And she lumped 4-wheelers in with 3-wheelers. But the reality is, here's how I look at it. Okay, sure, is a 3-wheeler more dangerous than a 4-wheeler? Sure. But is a gun dangerous? Sure. If I take the gun, I put it to my head and pull the trigger, hello? I mean, that may be a crazy analogy, but it's true. It's no different than taking your car and running in a block wall and go, wow, I didn't know it hurt me. So the problem was there wasn't a lot of parenting back in those days, and the 3-wheelers became very popular. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of people going out to the dunes and riding areas. And it did get a little out of hand, I suppose. But unfortunately, they lumped the 4-wheel racing in with the quads, in with the 3-wheelers. They should have disbanded. They made the factories not promote any of it. Mm. So that's what really, and it was Barbara Walters. It was up there on 60 Minutes. I just remember like yesterday. Don't ride them.
You mentioned something a moment ago about exposure and getting as much exposure with the quads on different tracks as possible. Am I correct when I say that you are on TT tracks and speedway tracks as well with the quads?
Yeah. Suzuki did a thing at Ascot where they sponsored. Now, here's something really cool. This dates me. So they used to have channel 58 that was cable channel. So Suzuki bought that channel, advertisement time on their advertising time, and they would run it literally like 2 or 3 times a week. Like I don't know, Tuesdays and Thursdays they would run the reruns, and it was on there 2 or 3 times a night, it seems like. And what Suzuki did at Speedway is they had the regular Speedway races for the motorcycles, and then they had our event, and they were televised. And so it literally put us on TV. How amazing is that?
It is amazing. So
Yeah.
Now, when did you retire from racing quads? Why did you retire, and what did you do after that?
I want to say it was about 1997. I retired. About 96. No, it had to be before then. It was about 94. I was in Texas. I'll kind of give you an idea. I was in Texas. It's hot as hell. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I raced a moto earlier. I mean, my hands are blistered. I'm looking at this triple jump, and it's a gnarly third jump. So, like, if you don't make it, you're going to case it. And I'm gonna say you're going to die or be made.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this jump, and I'm going, there's not a whole lot of run up to it. It wasn't a matter of doing the jump. It's just the run up to it because it got really rutted. You had to come out of the corner and just get the right run to clear it, enough run to clear it. And I go, holy shit. And I had this visual thing, like my hands are blistered. It's hot as hell. If I die on this jump, you know what it's going to say tomorrow? It's going to say, man dies riding ATV in field. It's not going to say I was a racer or anything.
No.
It's just going to be man dies.
Right.
You know? And I go,
you're just going to be you're going to be a statistic, and that's it.
Yeah. So I go, man, I got to get a new job. And so I started looking. And a guy that sponsored me with a trailer company called Weekend Warrior, a very small company, I went to work for him about 1995 part-time. So I transitioned out of racing while I raced CT events, and my sponsors worked with me, and we took that company from they built toy haulers. So toy hauler RVs, okay? And he made me a deal I couldn't refuse, and we took that little company. It was a $3 million company to $7 million the first year. I created some programs. Once again, I was talking about negotiations, right? It helped me with the dealers and how to help them. So I had that negotiation savvy in a good way, not in a bad way. And so we helped the dealers a lot with programs and stuff. And we were able to grow the business from $3 million to $7 million the first year, which he had an 8-year business, Joe, and it was only doing $3 million a year. And they're big ticket items. And so we grew it to 8 million or 7 million. And then from there, we never looked back. We went all the way to, the corporation went all the way to 240 million.
Wow.
So it was the number one toy hauler brand around at that time. And it was a lot of fun. And, we got paid well and we played a lot.
A year ago, you were inducted into the AMA Hall of Fame. I think it's going to be a year. It's going to be a year in October. And I want to read back to you a quote. This is a quote from you, Gary. When I look back on four-wheel ATV racing and all the good fortune I've had having all these people with me, I realize I am blessed by God, and He is the one that has directed, guided, and put all of these amazing people in my life. End of quote. I want to know about your journey with the Lord. When did that begin? Is it something that happened in your life, like me and Steve Wise, where one day you wake up, or has God been in your life the whole time?
I think we grow into we're supposed to mature day by day, right? And I think I look back, and I meant wholeheartedly that statement. There's no way that could all happen. There's no way I could get inducted in the Hall of Fame. What a humbling thing and amazing thing. And to have all those great people help me at the awards banquet. Mm-hmm. I had my fiance, I had my brother, my sister-in-law that supported me and took me to the events in the beginning and took me riding. I have my nephew. I have my grandson with me. I have my niece with me. I had Wayne Henson and his wife Carol there with me. How cool is that at my table? And it was just an amazing experience. And thank you, AMA, for allowing me to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, and all the people that voted me in. I had the Ritchie family at Redbud, the Coombs family, Hangtown. I had Bob Messer call me up, said, "We're voting for you." I mean, all these cool tracks of these cool people. Brock Glover called me, Warren Reed, they voted for me. I mean, how cool is that? How does that happen?
Yeah.
It can only happen with the help of the Lord. That's it. It can't be just luck, and it has to be more than that, right? So that's how I see it. And God's always been in my life. When I would train and work out and run bleachers for moto, I used to say, "Why, Lord, what do I got to do? How do I do more?" And I know when we were young, we went to Bible study and church and stuff. And I don't go to church now, but I have a really, really good relationship with the Lord, Joe.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because that was my question. When did it all begin? And it seems like that you had a good foundation at an early age.
I did, but I probably swayed a little bit in there between, friends and young kids do stupid things, and they don't really know to believe in God or not believe in God. But I know there is a Lord, and I know it's a man above, and I just do. And for me, beautiful things have happened. I have a great girl in my life, and I got a great job in the RV industry. Again, I'm doing that, and with another company, I work for Forest River now, and I'm a Sandstorm rep, and I do the southern states, like I do Southern California and Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada. And how can you be so lucky, right?
It's true. You mentioned you had a grandson?
Yeah, I have two. I have Spencer, I have Ian, and one's 26 and one's 13. They're the best.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got a grandson who's turning 17 tomorrow, Gavin Momola, 17 tomorrow.
So cool.
And I got 4 of them. So, we are just about out of time tonight, Gary, but I wanted to give you an opportunity. You thanked some of the people at the AMA. You mentioned Bob Messer and Harry Clem, but if there's anybody else that you wanted to thank or anything else you wanted to plug before we wrap it up tonight, I want to give you a couple of minutes to do that. Oh, and before you do that, wait, I've got to announce the big announcement for tonight, Gary. Yes. Tonight's random share giveaway winner is Kenneth Holt. Kenneth Holt, you'll get a beautiful sticker sheet like this. Compliments of Vinco.com. Kenneth Holt. Get me your mailing address, and we'll get you out a sticker sheet just like that. Gary, sorry to interrupt all the people that you wanted to thank, but you may have the stage now. So what out there do you want to plug, or who might you want to mention?
Well, there's a lot of people. I want to thank Harry Clem for giving me my shot in ATVs. That changed my life. I want to thank Mark, he's not with us anymore, for allowing me to have the job in the RV industry. I want to thank the AMA for inducting me into the Hall of Fame. I want to thank my good friend Wayne Hinson and the Hinson family, Hinson Clutch Baskets, for promoting me all those years and supporting me, and Wayne babysitting my ass while we're at the races. You know what I mean? So what a great friend he's been. And I want to thank my brother and my family. I want to thank my fiance, Renee Moore. What a great girl she is for me. And I want to thank the Lord for all the beautiful things he's done for me.
Well, Gary, thank you for taking the time to join me here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the questions, because I really enjoyed all of your answers.
I hope you had a good time. I hope I made sense of my entangled life through motorcycles, ATVs, and RVs,
Yeah, I mean, Gary, you had a 20-year career, really.
Yeah. Oh, there's somebody else I want to thank. I want to thank Forest River and the Sandstorm job. My bosses, they've been really good to me, and I couldn't be with a better company. So I wanted to thank that. But no, I had a 24-year career, Joe. And the reality is, I mean, that's actually, it was about 25. It was about 12 and a half each. So how does that happen? You know what I mean? I can tell you I was too old to be racing, but that's all I knew. And along came RVs. So I've been very fortunate there also, to have a career and be able to put food on the table.
Yeah. Well, once again, Gary Denton, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And I'll be in touch with you, and I'm sure we'll see each other on the trail somewhere.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, Joe.
You're welcome, Gary. I'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, that about wraps it up tonight for Vintage Motocross Q&A. My guest has been Gary Denton. I want to thank everybody that tuned in. And, of course, I want to thank our sponsors, Motion Pro, Preston Petty Products, Vinco, Full Circle Racing, Northwest Mako CZ. Don't forget the York Swap Meet is coming up in January. It's never too early to get started on that. I will be at the International Motocross Museum this Wednesday, September 21st, a week from tonight. I'm looking forward to that in Chicago. And Discovering 6 Days, a great book by Keith Geisner. And I think I've got pretty much all the sponsors plugged for this evening. This is Joe Abadi. Thank you for joining me on Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll see you next time. Gina?